Hey guys, so in this video we're checking out the HBFPV DX40 HD, and this is what it looks like. It's basically a Cinewhoop style, but in sort of the super nano, super micro size. Very tiny motors and 40mm props. The motors here are Happy Model branded. These are the 0803 12,000 kV, and on the specs, the motors are rated 2 to 3S. The flight controller is rated 2 to 4S. So basically, if you go 4S on this motor, you're probably going to burn it out because the kV is too high for 4S. So just be aware, don't fly this on 4S. On 3S, the motors get pretty warm on the factory PID tune, which I think is just Betaflight defaults on 3S. On 2S, which I only flew a couple times, it's very underpowered, so I don't recommend flying it on 2S. Maybe in some indoor flights you could do that. I think they recommend a 2S 550, but it got a pretty short flight time. I'd stick to the like a 300 3S or a 450 3S. I think somewhere in that range is going to be fine for this. And basically, it looks like a miniature Cinewhoop, like the Green Hornet or the Bumblebee, the Veyron, Chasers 138. There's a lot of those 3-inch Cinewhoops that have the sort of inside 3D printed plastic duct, and then you have this foam on the outside as a bumper guard, and so they've sort of miniaturized that into this style here with the tiny motors and props. And then the stack in here is your standard whoop style stack, the all-in-one flight controller and ESC. So those are 12 amp 400 ESCs, and it's an F4 flight controller, USB port going out the bottom here, as well as the motor plugs. And you see the motors have the plugs still on them. And then you have a video transmitter. It's in between the baby turtle board and the flight controller. It's kind of hidden there. I think it's mounted on a piece of foam. It's a 25 to 400 milliwatt power switchable video transmitter. You can see the antenna coming out over here. And of course you got your Caddx baby turtle, and this is the Whoop edition. See, it's mounted on the Whoop style mounts here. This is actually the better one, I think, in my opinion. And you get this case as well. This comes with the camera control cable and the camera adapter and a few other little foam pieces, etc., and also the instructions for the receiver. So this comes with several receiver versions. This one here happens to be the one with the AC900 receiver, which is switchable between FHSS, D16 EU mode or LBT, and D16 non-EU or US mode or FCC mode. So that this receiver can do 3 different modes, and you can pick any one of those 3. If the other ones are not in stock, you can always switch the receiver mode by the instructions are included in the box. This one here happened to be the FHSS version, and I just switched it to D16 FCC mode using the instructions, and that's how I bound it up to my Jumper T12 Pro, and it works totally fine. The other receivers available are FreeSky D8, which I think is a pretty generic receiver. I don't think that one's a very good one. I have a DSMX receiver, which I have no history with. I have no idea if that's any good or not. And then there's the FlySky, I think it's an FS2A receiver, which is an okay receiver if you're going kind of mid-range, not too far. So this thing, the way it flies, I would not recommend flying it outdoors in any kind of wind at all. It just gets pushed around too easily, and it's because of the very wide duct here. Any kind of a breeze will just push this around. It doesn't weigh a whole lot. Let me just, I think it's about 60 something if I remember right. Let's see here. 64.5 grams. And so for this motor size, I think it's 0803 12,000 kV on this Gemfan 40mm 1635 3-blade propeller. Even on 3S, it's not got, it doesn't have a super like a lot of power, because it is a bit on the heavy side for these kind of components. But yeah, because the duct is so tall and wide, any kind of a breeze will actually push it around. Even when I was flying it around indoors, when the AC is on in my house when it's kind of hot outside, the I guess the wind, the air coming out of the vents for the AC is so strong that it pushes this around even inside the house. So you need completely calm conditions if you want to fly this, because it is so light, and because the ducts are so huge, it does get pushed around. Even when you fly like a 3-inch Cinewhoop outdoors, in any kind of wind. It gets pushed around too. So this is, being lighter and everything is going to get pushed around even more. So this is really meant for flying around in very calm conditions, and obviously to capture 1080p video, HD video, if that's what you want to do. This could be ideal for some situations indoors where you don't have any kind of like air vents blowing wind around inside, and you can get some pretty stable footage. The tune seemed okay, just that it doesn't react very well to being pushed around by the wind. So there's obviously other whoops, I guess they're Cinewhoops in this sort of class. I think the last one that I reviewed was actually a 31mm, the Beta FPV 65X HD. It's a little bit smaller, but the cameras are on top in those, and like I think of this, the Beta 75X as well, HD, all the cameras are sitting up on top. I think the only one that has a camera sort of forward is the 85X 4K, and I think that even the HD one is the Caddx one is sitting on top. And all those, like, you have the ducks in or props in the view with the HD video. And the advantage of this sort of setup here is that the camera here and your view is not obstructed by the ducks. You don't see that. You just see the forward-facing view. So this is, I think, one of the few ready-to-flies or frames I've seen that comes like this, where the camera is mounted in this sort of position where you're not going to be able to see any of the craft or the ducks in your video. If that's what you want, then this is something you want to check out. Now, my only gripe about this is the price. It's kind of on the expensive side. So it's $200 here with the receiver version. If you just get the frame, I think it's like around $28. I'll link that down in the description as well if you want to do a custom build and maybe do it for a little bit cheaper. Maybe you have another craft that has a baby turtle in it already, or you have another whoop flight controller, for example. You could build this a little bit differently. Like for me, on this 40mm propeller, I don't think I would go with the 0803 motor necessarily. If I were to do a custom build, I think I would probably go with like a 1102 motor for this propeller size on 3S. I think you'll get a little bit better responsiveness on the low end, which is better for slow flying, which is better for cinewhooping. So it's debatable. Of course, there's going to be different opinions about that, but that's what I'm thinking would be better if you wanted to do a custom build. Then I just get the frame. If you already have like a Caddx baby turtle and a whoop flight controller, you could probably do a different build for probably a little bit less. But obviously, if you don't know how to build or put these things together, then going the buying route and getting a bind and fly here would be, obviously be one of your good choices. And my only gripe again is the price. It's a little bit on the expensive side for what you're getting. Anyway, so I think that if you're maybe a beginner pilot and you want to fly this in a smaller space indoors in a house, and you're probably going to be bumping into things and don't want to scratch up your walls or your furniture, then something like this size here with these foam bumpers are going to be pretty good. It's going to protect your stuff inside the house. Unless you're going super fast, you're probably not going to crash into the little carbon pieces here. You're going to mostly hit these bumpers. And if you turn on the crash recovery mode, you go to CLI and type set crash recovery equals on and save. That will prevent the whoop from freaking out when you like bump a wall or some sort of an object. You've probably seen some of that in the footage I just showed you already. But yeah, if you're flying this indoors and you don't want to damage things inside your house, these little foam bumpers are pretty good. And of course, if you live in a smaller house like I do, flying a 3-inch, even though it has these little bumpers on the 3 inches, probably not going to protect your stuff, because it's the 3-inch ones have a lot more power and it's going to push things over and probably knock things over and even still cause some damage. So this is going to be a little more ideal if you just want to practice inside, don't mind bumping things. This is going to be something pretty good for that kind of situation. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Put links down in the description for the bind and fly and also the frame. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.